For episode 13, the story begins at Sakura School. It's a quarter after 11 o'clock in the morning. So during gym class, we have Sakura, her best friend Madison, Chelsea, Nikki, Rita, and Lee. And of course, Sakura's doing sit ups. Of course, you could say that Madison couldn't help but compliment to Sakura and say, "Gee, you got a lot of energy." So Madison says in Sakura's case, she wasn't as tired as she thought because remember, in the last episode, she has 24 star cards so far. Oh, I almost forgot about Eli. He's at gym class too. Then suddenly the gym teacher that was there, he blows the whistle to say, "Everybody gather around." And so they did. So once everyone gathered around, that's when the gym teacher says, "There's some good news. We're playing basketball, but we're going to try something a little different," he said. So the gym teacher said that even better is a one-on-one match. And of course, both Sakura and her best friend Madison are very excited when they heard the good news. And so, long story short, the one-on-one game of basketball begins. So it was one by one, every student goes one on one with one another, including Sakura. So after that, the gym teacher said that Lee and Eli should have a turn, and so they did. So now that Lee and Eli are on the court, even though they're not happy about it, but they don't have a choice but to play basketball anyway. So that's exactly what happened. So long story short, the basketball game went as planned between Lee and Eli. That was until Eli used the basket first, so it's Eli 1, Lee 0. Long story short, Sakura continued to cheer the boys on, Lee and Eli. Then, long story short, when just about Lee's turn to take a shot, he shoots the basket, but the ball misses the basket. And Sakura was very upset that she was worried that Lee's going to lose the basketball game for sure. That was until, long story short, thanks to Lee shooting a three-pointer, he wins the basketball game. So it's Lee 3, Eli 1. So after the teacher blew the whistle, Lee just couldn't believe that he won the basketball game. He was in shock. How does he do it? How did he pull it off? Then Eli walked next to Lee and gave him a word of advice. He says, "If you worry about something or someone that's close to you, you shouldn't be distracted so easily." And so after that, Eli walks off. So when gym class came to an end, Lee couldn't help but wonder what did Eli mean when he said that. The time is now it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Meanwhile, at the high school where Julian and Tori had attended, Julian lately has been so sleepy lately and he just couldn't figure out why. But by the time he approached the fence at the elementary school across the way, that's when he sees Eli. So by the time that Julian saw Eli, he started acting really weird. He transforms into Yue right in front of Eli. Then what Yue did was unbelievable. He flew over the fence and he's face to face with Eli that he thought was Cloud Reed. He says, "How can this be? You passed away centuries ago," Yue said. But Eli just stands and stares at him. So instead of answering Yue's question, he puts him under a trance when Yue falls asleep and collapsed into Eli's arms. Then Eli made a confession to say that his work is not done yet. Then, in omission by confession, that's when Eli told Yue that's why he's in that form until this very minute. Then he asked the question, "It must be very difficult to see the magic itself is leaving you, hasn't it?" Then, also in omission by confession, that's when Eli said, "If I'm not mistaken, Sakura must be the source of your power." Then Eli says, "Although I do admit that Sakura's getting stronger by the minute, but unfortunately her magic itself alone isn't going to be strong enough to save you." Well, before Eli can transform Yue back to Julian, that's when he gives him one last final advice. He says, "You must be patient. Trust your instincts. There's another source that's near you." Things are very developing more than what you can expect. "I do miss you and Kero very much," Eli said. "But unfortunately," Eli says, "I must confess, I cannot let everybody else know that I'm alive. at least not yet anyway, he said. And so just like that, with the power of Eli's magic, Yue turned into Julian, Sakura's older brother's best friend. When Julian woke up and sat up, he had no idea how he got to Sakura's school and what is going on. So Eli, in omission by confession, just told Julian that he's been asleep. You mean right here? Julian asked. Well, Eli said to Julian that not only that he did, so Julian says, "Oh, I guess I did." So Julian apologized and said to Eli, "Gee, I must have scared you." "Not necessarily so," Eli said. So Julian, without any hesitation, went ahead and climbed over the fence back to the high school, where himself and his best friend Tori attended. So now that Julian had made it, he thanked Eli for helping him. "It's no problem," Eli said. Then suddenly Julian just heard the voice of his best friend Tori, who's Sakura's older brother, calling his name. So after Eli heads off across the way, so after that, Julian looked at Tori and says, "Oh, hey, Tori, what's going on?" "I just heard what happened," Tori says. "You collapsed somewhere on the ground," Tori said. So Tori has his turn to ask Julian a question. "Are you okay?" "Don't worry about it," Julian says. "I'm fine." Then Tori looked over his shoulder to look at Eli, who was walking away in the elementary school that his sister attends. He knows that there was something off, but he just couldn't figure it out. Meanwhile, at Madison's house, it was in the living room that Lee and Madison are having tea. So Madison made a compliment with Lee to say, "Wow, I can't tell you just how focused you were at that basketball game earlier today," she said. "Oh, Madison's best friend Sakura is there too, and she's trying out her new costume, but she'll show up later." So back with Madison, she asked Lee a question. "You don't really like Eli that much, do you?" At first, Lee doesn't answer Madison's question, but yet Madison couldn't help but ask him why. Then Madison pleads her case to Lee to say, "Well, lately you've been suspicious." Finally, Lee just pleads his case to Madison that for some reason Eli just couldn't be trusted. Well, Madison just pleaded her case to Lee to say he seems innocent enough as far as I can tell. Then Madison asked Lee a question. "Do you think he's hiding a secret or something? That's why you couldn't trust him in any way?" So Madison made a suggestion to Lee that he should give Eli a chance so they could get along a little better. Because, as Madison says in her case, that Lee shouldn't let his imagination get the best of him. Then suddenly Sakura shows up in the living room. I told you we'd get back to her later, and she's in her new costume that Madison made. Now you can tell that both Madison and Lee are very impressed. They were in awe. So Sakura pleaded her case to say, "Now be honest. Just tell me what you thought of it," she said. Well, Lee, before answering Sakura's question, he sensed something was weird and asked if she too can sense it. "What do you mean?" Sakura asked Lee. Then Lee says, "There's something weird going on around here," and he's not kidding. Then both Sakura and Lee looked over and out the window. Now that they know where the source is coming from, it's coming from the school, so they rushed to investigate. So later that night at Sakura school is now after 10 o'clock. So everyone was there, Kero, Sakura, Lee, and Madison. So although I cannot say for sure if Kero too has seen something weird, but it is confirmed. So Sakura told Kero that whatever's going on is somewhere inside. So even though Kero agrees with Sakura, but then asks what was going on. Now, Kero's getting all upset because he just sensed something a moment ago and now it's gone. So Madison, being supportive as she is, she said to Kero, "Calm down. You just had to trust Sakura on this." So after Kero and Sakura suggested that they should cover more ground if they split up, so Lee was asking Madison, "Are you sure you should be going with us? It is dangerous, you know, because If you are sure, then stay close to me, he suggested. So Madison says, don't worry, as long as I have you, Sakura, and Kiro to protect me, I'll be fine. So Madison, being supportive as she can be, just trust your instincts and your abilities, she said. So Kiro, who was talking to Madison and Lee, says, come on, you two, hurry up. We don't have all night. So Madison agrees and then said to Lee, well, let's get on with it. And so that's what they did. I guess this means that all four of them will be staying together after all, so that's a smarter idea. So as the four of them went inside the school, Sakura says, gee, this is really weird. So Kira was asking Lee a question. You don't sense any ghosts or anything like that, right? Well, I don't see any ghost here as far as I can tell, Lee said. So Sakura says, really? I have no idea. I didn't know you can sense ghosts, she said. Then Lee made an omission by confession to Sakura, Madison, and Kiro that he's been sensing ghosts since his training back in Hong Kong where he comes from. Well, that's great, Madison said. But then, out of nowhere, all five of them just saw a basketball bouncing up and down the hallway. Now, that is really weird. Now, Madison was first to ask a question. How did the basketball get inside? What is going on? Well, it not only was bouncing up and down by itself, but what the five of them saw next was unbelievable. A basketball rolling away. Then Lee had a hunch that someone or something is controlling the basketball, but he had no idea who or what. So what the basketball did next was bounce up and down, and it's bouncing in the hallway. So what the four of them did was to go after it. So what the basketball did next was to go up the stairs. And as for the four of them, Sakura, Lee, Madison, and Kiro, they continued to pursue it. But what none of them knew is that on the school's roof is Eli. So back with the runaway basketball that just went up the stairs and with the four of them chasing it, so what the basketball did is that it went inside one of the classrooms. And as the four of them arrived, they found it weird that they just couldn't find the runaway basketball anywhere. So after everyone looks everywhere but no such luck, he says, this is weird. We saw it go in here. Then Sakura made a suggestion. She says, maybe if I open the door again, maybe we can see the basketball going out the back, she said. But when Sakura opened the door, the hallway was missing. Now that is really strange. So Madison approaches Sakura to ask a question. Did you see the basketball anywhere? Well, you may say it's crazy, Sakura says, but when I opened the door, the hallway was missing. So Lee figured he should have a turn to take a look. And so he did. And when he opened up the door, it's the different room. Now that is really, really strange. So Kira was asking Lee a question. You're kidding me, right? So then when Sakura opens up another door, it's the school's music room. Now this is really, really weird. And Sakura says, what's going on here? Well, the way I can figure it, Kiro says, that the room that we're standing in right now is some kind of a parallel dimension. So unfortunately for the four of them, there's no way out. They're trapped. And that's when before long they saw the exact same basketball inside of the music room. So before the four of them can go inside, that's when Lee made a suggestion that they should chase the ball out of the room. So Lee, Sakura, Madison, and Kiro went inside the music room. But unfortunately, when Sakura, Lee, and Kiro got closer to the bouncing basketball in the music room, the only person that didn't make it inside is Madison. Now that Sakura, Lee, and Kiro realized that Madison is missing, that's when the three of them were running trying to find her. So Sakura was saying, Madison, where are you? So back with Lee, Sakura, and Kiro who were trying to find Madison anywhere, and that's when they went inside into the room where the fuse box is. Now remember that's the exact same box where 2 seasons ago that Madison and Sakura had battled the shadow card. Now Sakura is getting really worried that she'll never find her best friend anywhere. So Lee tells her, stay calm, we just gotta find out where the classroom is. So even though Sakura agrees with Lee's suggestion, but there's a problem, the door's gone. But then she suggested the through card. Maybe she and Lee can go through a wall. Well, not a bad idea, Lee said. But the problem with the through card is because what Lee says in his case, with the dimensions that's shifting their rooms around, there's no way they can use it. Now, Kero, who agrees with Lee, says that there's another problem. Even with the through card, if it does work, then neither Sakura and or Lee can get stuck in a wall. Then Kero asks Lee a question if there is some kind of magic that he can use to find Madison. Well, even if he does, as Lee says in his case, but the problem is, it could only be with some kind of an object that a person leaves behind. This, of course, says, wait a minute. Madison did leave an umbrella in the classroom once upon a time, Sakura said. So even though Kiro agrees with Sakura and said that there's only one problem, the classroom that they just left from is now gone. Now Sakura is getting really, really worried and concerned. She knows that she has to find her best friend, but she knows that she has to come up with a plan quick. Then, long story short, both Lee and Sakura just heard singing coming from out of nowhere, Wings of the Dream from 2 seasons ago. Then Sakura had a thought as she was looking out of the night sky to see the moonlight from out of the window, and then she sees her own shadow. So thanks to Sakura seeing her own shadow on the floor, that's when, aha, she has a plan. So plan A was to turn on all the lights. So she asked Lee and Kiro if they would do that. What do you need the lights on for? Kiro asked. Just do as I tell you and trust me on this, Sakura said. So Lee had done what Sakura had asked to do and turned on all the lights in the school. Now that all the lights are on at the school, Plan A is finished. It's now up to Sakura to go to Plan B. And what was Sakura's Plan B? To transform the shadow card into a star card. So she did. So what Sakura did next was unbelievable. She asked the Shell's form to help her find her best friend, and along with Lee and Kiro. So that's what it did. So back with Sakura, Lee, and Kiro, they continued to follow the Shell's form from up the stairs, down the hallway, and then finally in one of the upstairs classrooms. Then finally, at last, thanks to Sakura, Lee, and Kiro, good news, they found Madison. So Sakura went first to run up to hug her and says, oh, thank goodness we found you. I thought we've lost you, Sakura said. Oh, also the good news, the Shadow Star card makes it number 25 on Sakura's Star card list. So Madison made an omission by confession to Sakura that she's not going to lose her, and that she'll know that both Sakura and Lee will find her, and so that's what happened. So as Sakura and Madison were busy hugging each other, they didn't know that watching them through on the roof was Eli. Well, at first Sakura sensed something was weird, so she looked out the window. But the roof was empty. Where did Eli go? When Madison approached Sakura and asked what was going on, that's when Sakura says that for a moment, I thought that someone was watching us. So, Lee and Kiro too have felt something weird, but they had no idea what to make of it. When Lee opened the door, the hallway's back. So yes, you've heard right, the school is now back to normal. So before Sakura, Madison, Lee, and Kiro can leave the school for the rest of the night, that's when Eli says, yes, Sakura, it's true. You're stronger than I realized. You're getting closer now. But next time, I better be on my guard. And then after that, Eli heads off. So back with Lee, Sakura, Madison, and Kiro, who had just left the school moments ago, they're now crossing a bridge. Now, as they were walking across the bridge, that's when Sakura said to Madison, I just couldn't believe it. With the 25 star cards I got so far, I'm not as tired as I thought. Well, that's a good sign, Madison said. Of course, even better, Sakura even tells her best friends there's a few cards left to transform. She's going to be getting her strength back in no time. Now Sakura just couldn't help but what's going on in her head. Someone is pulling the strings and she had no idea who. But whoever it is, according to what Sakura said, he has the stronger power. Well, in Lee's case, he not only agrees with her, but said that the only person that's doing it is Cloud Reed, and he's just the person that has the master strong enough in order to do that. Now Sakura, who agrees with Lee, and says that's true. Then Madison says that she has only one tiny regret. While she was missing from her group inside of the school earlier, she forgot to record Sakura's transformation of the shadow card that she used earlier. But then, to make Madison feel better, that's when Kero says, "Don't worry, I can give you all the entertaining details right now," he suggested. So while that's going on, Sakura just made a compliment with Lee to see how brave he was back there. "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "Well, we're in this together after all," Sakura says. "I had to admit, I'm glad that you're with me when you did." "There is one thing we can agree with," Sakura says. "With your training on my side, in case that someone tries to challenge us, you're there when you're needed." Of course, in Sakura's case, she's not wrong. "Thanks for the compliment," Lee said. So yes, it's true. Sakura now has 25 star cards on the list, but there's still a lot to go. So that ends episode 13.